Lovely to see a full house on a Tuesday at BIC and standing ovation and all. Please come and sit. There are chairs, of course. Um, I'm a storyteller, so I'll start with a story. So once a little, can you just name an animal? A dog went to the mama and papa dog and said that I've been around, but not everybody understands my barking. And then the mama and papa said, what do you like to eat? What do you have for breakfast? Idli. And the little one said, why are you asking? I mean, now I want to eat a fruit. And Mama Papa said, give me a fruit name. Anybody want to give a fruit name? Mango. Give me another fruit. Same person. Okay, mango, banana, go on. Pineapple. Pineapple is very interesting because it has nothing to do with the apple, but it's called pineapple, like custard apple also. And they said that, yeah, the world is like these three different fruits, mango, pineapple, and banana. Some things, like say even the jackfruit or the apple, you need, some things can be eaten directly. The apple can be eaten directly. The banana needs to be peeled. The jackfruit needs to have a travel. But the end of it, it's a travel that takes you to taste it. And the little one said, huh, but what do you mean? If you understand, you understand. If not, think about it. Because everybody around us are like these three fruits, like banana, the mango, and the jackfruit. Some are easy to peel, some take time, but every conversation is important. With that, I'm going to begin with my first question to Poorva. As a documentary maker, this form you mentioned is a personal documentary. Where do you draw a line, and was there a time in which the mother in you hit you during the process?
I think throughout. So one of the criticisms of the film has been that the conversation doesn't feel complete. It doesn't, like, I think viewers were also, they hoped that they would get like a template that they can then play for their children. Um, and I think I was always clear about the fact that this seems right for me as a mother. As a filmmaker, sure, I thought that so much more can be said. But as a mother, I knew that I don't want to cross a certain boundary now. And a lot of these conversations are also ongoing. So it wasn't my responsibility and still isn't my responsibility to have these conversations with everybody's children. I can do that for my children. And in a way and manner that sort of feels right and authentic to me as a mother. So I think throughout the process, I was very cognizant of the fact that I'm a mother first here and then a filmmaker, which also explains the length of the film. It could have been a longer film. I could have sort of shot for days, but it just seemed right at that moment. I didn't want to burden the kids with more of these conversations. I wanted them to absorb and live that experience and live the experience of me making the film and now the film traveling. So for me, that as a mother seemed like a good journey.
Lovely. My next question is to Sangeeta ma'am. So, sir did ask about the father. So, my question is the role of the gender, the father, the mother, the grandfather, grandmother. It's like saying what a grandmother can do, a grandfather might not be able to do. So, what is the role of the gender, parent, grandparent, in the conversation like safety?
It's quite gender neutral, genderless. Anyone concerned about the child can have this conversation. And in many families, the same gender parent or a family member is missing. So will you never have that conversation? No. It is not anything to do with how your body is made and that certain organs should be matching and present in both to have a conversation like this. No, it's just like any other subject in a way.
Lovely, which means it's not that the father should only talk to the son or the mother only.
Oh no, not at all.
So, go beyond gender.
Yes.
Purva, did you have a plan for the movie? Because from a documentary perspective, was there a plan that you wanted to achieve? Or was there some improv that happened in the process? Like the reaction the children could have, I mean, like when he's asking about, oh, was it sex education? Did it throw you out? How did you plan the movie?
The best thing about planning is not planning, and it's a rule that's worked for me. So to answer your question, initially no. Like I think even I was very overwhelmed by 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 the shoot. So I also sort of took some time off to think what I want to do. When I was convinced that this needs to be a film, uh, is then I was just sort of taking one day at a time. When I saw it taking form and shape, then I started thinking as a filmmaker and said, okay, fine. So what is the journey of the film? Where do I want to take it? So to me, it was clear that okay, I want to take this outside the country first to the festival circuit, and then get the film to India. Um, and then, of course, the impact campaign that now that we are taking the film to schools. Uh, I've also realized that, see, when I was making the film, I didn't really understand, or I didn't sink in that touch is still a very sensitive subject. It didn't. So I'm also constantly, I've been sort of taking in people's responses and then reacting based on what I'm seeing. So, for instance, when I took the film to schools, I realized that, sure, I mean, children are cool, they want to talk about it, but parents are the gatekeepers. Parents don't want to talk about it. So that was an insight which I didn't have when I was making the film. So it's just constantly, it's just been sort of responding, or the light-hearted nature of the film. Um, as a filmmaker, I like making things a little light-hearted. I feel like that sort of opens you up more to introspect than to, deal with something serious. In this case, the subject is anyway very serious. So, thing. But even a light-hearted film could then be a trigger for an adult, which I have also seen, which never occurred to me. So I've not planned for this film. I'm just sort of taking each day as it comes, and then designing my steps accordingly.
Ma'am, there is a larger version, a longer version, which for, I think, for educational purposes in schools, where ma'am talks about, Sangeeta ma'am talks about using euphemism. For example, a lot of parents use words like parrot or cookie, that awkwardness that we feel before we just use the word the body part, the penis or the breast. I want you to comment on that and the importance of not using the euphemism.
Yeah, but before that, I would like to address the origin of this discomfort. And that comes from, you know, kind of a misfortune that we have had. And I'll just explain that. I'm always interested in the origin of the words to understand where they came from. So we define sex and we in different ways, and that means male, female, intersex, and also the act of sex, and that's a problem. That you have the same word for these two very different concepts. So initially it came from the Latin word sicere, which just means a division. And if you look at the bodies in nature, you can easily categorize them into female, male, intersex. Intersex is when you look at the genitals and others, you can't clearly label them as either female or male, and that's the intersex variations. And that was a word that was used for sex. That was the sex used for, and it has the same origin as the word section. Section ABCD, right? So after that, they started using it like an adjective. The organs that were being used to make this categorization were called the sexual organs. Okay, so far so good. But then the act that happened by using these organs was also called sex. And that was the downfall of all of any idea of sexuality education, all of that. Sexuality, everything just went downhill, because in people's mind, when we say that And this is a question that I had asked in a room full of police officers, judges from all parts of India in the National Military Training Academy in Hyderabad. And I asked, is a newborn baby sexual? And you should have seen their faces and all. And this gentleman, he was elderly, he was sitting behind in the third row or something, and he said, no. And there was a younger police officer sitting in front of him, and he said, yes. So I said, can you please explain, Aditya, why you're saying that they are sexual at birth? So he said, they have the organs. Just like we are visual at birth and we don't debate that, they are sexual at birth. They have the organs. Organs can feel. They're connected to the brain. You pour hot water, the child will cringe. Touch gently, it will produce pleasure. And that is also nature's design, to make sex pleasurable so that we can put ourselves at huge risks for the sake of our species, right? So that is a design. But this thing of the act of sex getting confounded with the actual anatomical sex is where the discomfort comes from. And that's what we're trying to break down and get people to understand, that newborn babies are sexual. As they grow older, they expand in their ability to perceive the stimuli that are coming and the responses they give. Just like they're visual at birth, can't see color. Eventually they can see color. Visual acuity improves. So it's like that. What was your question?
The use of euphemism. I mean, instead of using
Yes.
the. And
So
also, if
that
you can
is
just
one-
add to the. Is it cultural that we don't have the conversation, or is it?
No, it's
how
not
do you-
cultural. The same story is repeated across the world. And when I say across the world, we should be really mindful that we are talking about the mainstream cultures on this world. There are tribal cultures where there is no shame like this, where they are very open because they haven't heard the word sex. Yeah? And they have their own words, but they don't mix it up like this. So we're talking about the mainstream cultures. It is across the world. I've traveled to many countries. It's the same story because these words have been mixed up. And also it has a very long thing with origin of patriarchy.
Is it only in
shaming.
English thing, or is it in?
No. It is there in other countries also in Southeast Asia. Yes.
Where they don't speak English also.
They don't speak English, but the shame with these parts, the stigma about sex and all of those things is linked with the establishment of agriculture, origin of patriarchy, and so many other things. We will not go into that, otherwise the audience will be here. They may all be sleeping, we'll still be talking. So,
Euphemism, the word
yes,
parrot
the
cookie.
euphemism. So I'll give you the euphemism I heard here and the trouble it caused. This child was told that this is your flower, hua. And then when the child was 3. And then when the child was around 6, she was playing with an uncle of hers, and she felt that this is something unusual, this is not very nice. She came to check with the mother, and what she said is, uncle is touching my hua. Like in the language she said like that. The mother had forgotten that this is the name she has given to the genitals. She thought the uncle is touching some flower in the garden. She said it's all right. So the child went back to play with the uncle. He was playing hide and seek with her. Only when the abuse became more severe, then the mother realized, oh my God, the child was reporting unsafe touch. But because of the vocabulary and the ambiguity in the word, the parent didn't get it. US. I was visiting a child, a center which supports children who have been targeted for abuse. So there they told me that this lady came with her child, and the child had been sexually abused. And the thing was that the mother had given, again I'm saying mother, it can be the parent had given the word cookie for the genitals. Okay. One day the child came to say, again it is uncle, as females can also abuse children, but overwhelmingly the perpetrators are male. So the examples I'm given, both the example, it was a male. So she said, uncle is messing with my cookie. So the mother said, but you should share your cookies. No? Because we teach children to share the biscuit, share that banana, apple, whatever. So the child went back. So that's what happens when we are unclear and we have not given the name. You don't have to say penis, vulva, vagina. No. I can rattle it off because I'm a gynecologist. My children knew these words. But use a word which is clear in your mother tongue, in the language you speak at home. Susu. This is your susu jaga. Now, if the 3-year-old you say this is your susu jaga, this is your potty jaga, that's enough. And when the child comes and says somebody is touching my susu, you won't mistake it for anything. One father had told his son, it's your parrot. Now tell me, if the child goes to the toilet in the school, somebody touches him in an unsafe manner, and he comes back and he's telling the teacher, somebody touched my parrot. What will be the response of the teacher? ये क्या तोता मैना की कहानी, जाओ बैठो.
You're making it up.
You're making, what are you talking about? I don't get it. I mean, go sit. Right? So that's why. Use words that you're comfortable using. They shouldn't, and don't associate any shame. Don't say this is your shame. Shame. Don't say this is your gold, bangaru. No. Please
And
don't.
both, like you said, the shame, puppy shame, and yellow, dirty fellow has a lot of connotation why these words came. But today we don't have to do that. I mean, let's go a little beyond. And for example, in some vernacular, when there's a word called poo pookurudu, when a girl who comes of age. When let's be direct today, because children are going to know much earlier than even we think they might know. My next question is to Poorva. In case you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll keep question and answer also. The subject, how did it come to you? Was it before being the mother, or the mother in you triggered it a little more? Have you seen this before? But did you? Something was bothering you before itself. What triggered you as a filmmaker?
I'll just dial back. We want this to be an interactive session, so if you all would like to say something, want the mic, just let us know and we'll give
And
you
also
the mic.
questions about the subject. I think ma'am
Yeah.
can definitely answer questions.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this question because there isn't any comment here from the audience yet. So my association with the subject is, of course, goes way back. So in around 2020 is when I started researching child sexual abuse. And of course, there were experiences from my childhood which I had forgotten. Like, you don't, I think you bury it somewhere. And then I did see something in close quarters in my friend group, which sort of triggered me, because then those memories came rushing back. And I asked myself, can you ever vouch for somebody's private life? Simple question, because we're engaging with so many people on a day-to-day basis at work, even with friends, parties, dinners, but you really know what happens behind closed doors. And I started making a film. And Enfold was kind enough, Sangeeta ma'am is the co-founder of Enfold. I reached out to them for help because I didn't understand too much about child sexual abuse. And I wanted to make an informed film. I wanted to do my research. So Enfold gave me access to a lot of on-ground, visit to police stations, courtrooms, etc. And I realized that the problem actually is something very fundamental. The problem is a small one, which is communication isn't happening. Not enough communication is happening. So if there is an open channel of communication between parents and children, where children have the space to tell their parents what's happening in their lives. If parents park if we parents park our baggages aside and our awkwardness, and if we also sort of have conversations, a lot of problems will be avoided. So it was really my problem solving thing that sort of kicked in. I said, no, communication, conversations at home. I think that will solve a lot of our problems. Um, and then because I was making the film, the kids would also hear me talk. I'm talking about abuse, this, that. And I mean, you can't always go rush inside the room, close yourself, and have these conversations, because even that's problematic, because you're then associating shame with topics. And I knew I didn't want to do that. So the only way out was then to start having conversations with my children on what I do. So that, and then you just have no way out. So I was pushed into it, and I'm glad I was. And then that's how the film came about. Of course, I've had conversations with the children on touch even before we filmed, but I think it must be the presence of the camera. It must be my persistence. It must have been a lot of these factors which then made them react the way they did. And of course, I mean, even the epilogue that I added it very recently. So to make the film more accessible, we've now localizing it and dubbing it into multiple Indian languages. We've started with Hindi, and I was very interested to know how that 2 years has made an impact on the children. Uh, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what happened.
Thanks.
You mentioned some boundaries when you decided the length of the film. So I was wondering what those boundaries were and what went into the consideration of creating those boundaries. Also wanted to know what the larger film was about, and I wanted you to talk more about the etymology that you decided that we should have conversation later on. And yeah, it's a beautiful film. I expected it to be much longer, but yeah, like I did not feel that it needed more. I was just, yeah, pleasantly surprised. But yeah, I wanted to know how did you decide where to draw the line, and yeah, how did you come upon that decision?
That's a trick question, because I mean, see, as a parent, a lot of these things just sort of, that, okay, beyond this, I don't want to push it. So it was just a matter of me listening to my inner voice. Um, Also, this could have been a longer film. If I have to think from a filmmaker's perspective, the film, and I would have seen more success if the film was longer. So it was then the call, whether do I do what my career and the film needs, or do I do what feels right for me as a mother, but also as a sort of filmmaker. So those were some of the boundaries that I had drawn for myself. Like I said, and I could have pushed this, right? I could have sort of documented what the kids are feeling through, subsequent to this conversation. I could have made it a little more perfect, because the conversation, even in the tent, doesn't really, it's a conversation starter. It doesn't really, cover everything. Um, but then I realized I don't need to, I don't want to. So those were some of the boundaries that I decided not to cross. I could have sort of then prepared myself and said, okay, fine, I can have these conversations in the following days, and I can cover this and this and this. And I think that would be a little more prepared on my part. But I think I also wanted to. I mean, it is life, but I also wanted to mimic how real situations are, when a lot of things just happen when you are least prepared, right? And which is why I added the closing line that, not all conversations are perfect. And I doubt these conversations are ever perfect. There's always that one thing when you look back, you could have said it a little differently. You could have, it would have been nice if it was more rounded, more holistic, blah, blah, blah. But that's just not how real life is. So I sort of considered all these
That's what makes us
aspects.
human, no?
Yeah. And it just felt real to keep it as raw as possible. Also to then let fellow parents and families know that we are all in this together, and it's never perfect, but there has to be a start. Yeah.
I would like to expand a little more on what Poorva is saying, in the sense that sexuality education, personal safety education is not a period in a class that you have scheduled for 40 minutes and it will happen once a week and, up till you are this age, and then after that, nothing. No, it's a lifelong conversation that just continues with it at different settings, different places, and perfection doesn't exist in nature. So we don't want to look at any perfection. What feels good, and you sense it that for this situation, and judging by the body language and the responses of the children, they have had enough. Maybe another day, little more. Another day, something more. It's not an agenda. Don't make it an agenda. Oh, today I'll go back and must have this conversation and complete it before 10 p.m. today. Or on Sunday at 3 o'clock, we'll have this conversation. It's not like that. You have ample situations, ample things you can even use today. Oh, I went and there was this session, and I'm thinking it's really important. I think we can also have that conversation. It's about personal safety, or it's about this or that. That can be a conversation starter. You can use any number of reports that come in the media, in the news, any incident, so many things. Just pick it up and talk. It's very casual. What is coming to you? And guess what? You know enough. You know enough. A little polishing here and there. There is ample material. There's a lot on Enfold's website. There are many other NGOs that also produce materials on this. Just as we educate ourselves on various things through our mobiles nowadays, you can educate yourself on this as well. It's very casual. Don't stress about it.
Hi. It was a beautiful movie, Poorva, and I think the beauty came from how raw and organic it was. You mentioned that you're taking it to different schools through impact program, if I got that right. I just wanted to know from you how we could approach you on that.
Happy to take this after the event. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, it was a really beautiful movie.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about two things. So, one is kudos that your children are really expressive about their emotions, because and I think it's about parenting as well. Like I love the parenting of my parents, and I love whatever I can express. But still, I feel like there was an age where I could not express that much, which I'm able to now. But your kids are like really good at that. So, yeah, like if you can just explain me like some guide, anything if, for like a future parent, if someone wants to take notes from you, then if, whatever you want to say. And second thing is, you have shared that there were some boundaries, but while editing, you might have uh, cut short on some things. So, were there any things that you wanted to keep in the movie that you didn't keep, and what were those, and why didn't you keep them? So, yeah.
Regarding question number one, I'm not a model parent. I'm actually, there are quite a few problem areas I need to work. So I'm not going to take that question. I think I can only encourage you to be a good listener. And that just goes for all relationships. I think if you are a good listener, you listen. So even in the film, of course, I wanted to have this conversation, and my son didn't want to have the conversation because there was something far more important, and it was important. Like there was a serious situation in the house, which went undiscussed. So I think I just sort of stopped pushing my agenda, and I let him speak his mind, and we sort of found a resolution. Actually, we didn't find a resolution in the film, but we managed to find a resolution off camera. I mean, I did apologize, but then that was in the end. He keeps bringing it up. He keeps bringing it up, and in fact, just 2 weeks ago, he brought it up again because he reminded me what the fight was about. Apparently, he wanted me to buy a video game, and I wasn't giving him a concrete answer. And I kept saying, hey, we'll talk about it later, later, later. And then he just lost it, and then I lost it, and whatever. So he brought up the fact that I'm postponing a decision making regarding that video game.
After
right?
2 years?
After 2 years. Kids don't forget. So, so circling back to what you're saying is that, so at least now, after, when this happened 2 weeks ago, I heard him. I knew where he was coming from, and I said, okay, right now, we'll sort out your video game situation. I'll just give me 5 minutes. I'll think about it. I'll let you know whether I want to spend money, whether I want to install it, what the consequences are going to be, and we'll sort this out now. So that's the answer to your question. Just be a better listener. The second, yeah, there were portions in the film that I removed. I think one that comes to my mind is there was a scene which was there in the rough cut as well, where my son didn't want to be mic'd, and he asked for the mic to be removed, and then the team member removes the mic, which again I wanted to show that the kids were done filming, which for me was also an important emotion to show. But a lot of contemporaries in Europe didn't understand. They thought I was trying to demonstrate safe and unsafe touch. So I realized that I can't go about explaining the film everywhere I screen it. So I just decided to play safe. And it was easier to remove the scene rather than having to explain myself over and over again. So that was one scene that I removed here.
I want to consider it's really amazing that you're thinking of how you can make safe spaces for children to share, and maybe at some point of time, maybe your own children. It's quite commendable. There is a tool that we push everywhere. We shouldn't be pushing it because it's about restorative practices, restorative parenting. It is about creating safe spaces in your homes, in your wherever setting, in your classrooms, where we decide the values that we'll all follow. So Enfold does a lot of this work, and we talk about all this and more with children from grade 1 to grade 12 and onwards. How do we do it? We first create a safe space by saying what are the values you would like each person here, and you also will follow, so that you can share what is really in your heart. And we do that, like in our lives, we do that with some people. With some people, we don't say what's in our heart. We tell them lies sometimes, or sometimes half-truths. So look at the person with whom you're able to share everything. What kind of behavior are they showing? Maybe they keep your confidence, maybe they motivate you, maybe they don't ridicule you, they don't gossip about it, they have your welfare at heart, right? So many things, which are all values in a way. Confidentiality, authenticity, friendship, care, empathy. So they are demonstrating those values, and so you feel safe with them. It's the same you. With some people you feel safe, with some slightly safe, with some you feel really unsafe, right? It's the same you. So what's happening is in the behavior of the people, what values they are demonstrating. And when we bring those values into our house or into a classroom, so when we go in, our facilitators are sitting here, uh, Kushi and Sanjana, and they establish, they don't establish class rules because that is power over the child. I'll throw you out. Go out of the class. Come in. Stand here. That no power over the child, but values. What are the class values? They write down. They say, we want this, we want this, we want that. We put it on the blackboard for the 6 sessions that we will do. At home also, we have so many pictures, so many things we have on our walls. Have we put down the values that are dear to the family members? That we all agree with? I could eventually get that and do that with my husband, and now that values chart is up there on a wall in our house. If there is a real serious conflict, then we should really go up to that wall, remind ourselves of the values, and then have a discussion. Yeah, so those are things that can. And my daughter is doing it with her daughter, and it's amazing, really amazing.
Hey. Hi, Poorva. Thanks for doing this. Very proud of you and your team for putting this together. This was fantastic. The one thing that stood out as if I were to write a one-line critique was, it was so authentic, right? It didn't seem staged, although you were filming and everything, it didn't seem staged. So that was a comment. I'll make a bunch of comments and then I'll ask the question, right? I think the first thing that struck me was the kids were younger when it was filmed, 2 years, right? And like during the discussion you were saying that, and ma'am was saying as well, that, it's not about doing this every day or for 30 minutes and then coming back and revisiting it, etc., etc. But the kids now have grown. I'm sure their feeling about this has also evolved. They may be thinking about it in a slightly different way as well. So the question there is, are they more comfortable now talking about it? And what was that evolution over the past 2 years that may have changed? Whether they're comfortable or not is the question, yes or no, and then the point on that. The second thing was, look, and I have a 6-year-old, as you know, and kids spend a lot of time in school, right? And a lot of this can also be spoken about and discussed, regardless of, and 6 is maybe young, I don't know, maybe it's old enough to have these conversations in school. And kids respond to storytelling, morals, a better way, rather than saying, hey, this is good touch and bad touch. To your point on, this is not about a template. It can be, something that kids understand well. And it can be evolved over a period of time as they grow older. But in the current context of education, that rote learning, right? Like the way some of our curriculums are decided, unless like it's an IB or, some of those more evolved forms of education, I don't think that is well thought through, right? In at least in most state boards and the curriculum that I've seen. How can this go down to, and we are talking about urban areas, right? Forget rural, and that's a different ballgame altogether. How is this some sort of an activity or, somewhere where, how can this get imbibed into school, where kids spend a lot of time there, even compared to home sometimes?
Yeah.
So two parts to that question.
Yeah. So I'll let Sangeeta ma'am take the second question. I'll take the first one. I think so simply said that my relationship with my kids is far better and more mature than what it was when we shot this film. And I think the kids haven't said this to me, but I believe it may have come, or that trust in me may have come from the fact that I also put my life out there, or I also sort of showed how imperfect I am as a mother. And that sort of made them feel okay. and I've sort of also, it's not easy making films. So I've sort of also put myself through the process of making a film, and they've seen it all. So it's definitely improved. Uh, I know that my children have, especially Rehan, my son, uh, has conversations with me very often. My daughter, not so much. Like she does, but I think it's also a personality thing. She's not very open, and one really needs to be very careful and sort of look at her carefully, watch her move, and then get it out of her. But I can trust my son to just tell me that, hey, this is happening at school, and or this was brought up, I don't know what to do, and things. But I know that I think the film opened up that channel for us, for sure. Yeah, it did. Which doesn't mean that everybody should be making a film, so it just has to be something that works for you.
Yeah. More than the film, it was a conversation. Yeah, they felt safe, they felt heard, and she gave them information which they didn't have. It's just like, you're talking about education and how it can be. It's just like you teach the traffic rules, right? So like that, you teach the clothing, touching, and talking rules. We came up with this in 2001, 2002. When it's almost 24 years, we've been doing it in schools. We began in schools, we are still in schools, and we have spread in various places. We developed our own curriculum. Being gynecologists, we knew what needs to be, and we knew the social conditions and the culture and the beliefs and the shame and the stigma and everything. So we developed our own curriculum, which we have been following ever since. And we have also made it for children with disabilities, with intellectual disabilities, recently, and we wanted it in the curriculum. Not like the school comes as a take classes, okay, this one, that one. No, we want it in the textbook. And luckily, now the government announced that it will include sexuality education, which anyway it has done that. And we have included this content in the value education series, which the Karnataka government is going to release on the 14th of November. And all of this is there and more. So it can be done and it should be done. And also what we are pushing for is, okay, forget the schools if you haven't done so far. Please include it in higher education. Make it mandatory for all students for any course. And this has been done in the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. And they have made it mandatory. Because there is so much violence, there's so much of all this. And these are the children, these are the young people who will tomorrow become a teacher, a social worker, a judge, a police officer, whatever. They will already have this. And many of them will be parents, right? Many of them will be parents, so, yeah.
And art is a fantastic medium. I mean, a country like India, where art is at every centimeter, art is a great tool. And that's something, it can be visual art, performing art, and vice versa, because listening also is an important tool, because a child might exhibit through art forms. And as a parent, to watch that art forms, which we may not connect to as a parent, but the child is expressing. Take help. I'm sure, like ma'am, please take help to even to interpret what the child is sometime expressing, which we may not understand because we are generation different. A child is a child. We are not a child anymore. So in that way, if you need help, please take help. Question.
Thanks. Thank you. It was absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that apart from what was said in the film, what was also left unsaid is also, great content to process and to fill in those blanks. And along the way, you also touched upon just organically boundary setting where a parent can have a bad day, or when not to trigger a parent, busyness, managing work and home as a single parent maybe. Also a child feeling that the other child is being favored. So these are other related themes connected with childhood and parenting. And was that somewhere, were there issues also that you were processing, or did it just happen in the course of the film? And Can this film also be used to explore those themes?
So I think the film can be used to explore a lot of things. I mean, it really, for me, as a filmmaker, it goes beyond discussing safe and unsafe touch. It can really be used for any conversation that you have with your children. I'm also an editor by profession, and I edited the film. And as editors, we really play with the footage, right? So I was just cutting the film. I didn't realize what I was doing. I was a storyteller. And then I think, so you also can't cheat yourself. I mean, one can, but as an artist, I can't. As a person, I try being as authentic as possible. So what I got there on my edit table was a lot of these other issues as well. And it sort of made sense. Like, how can you have a conversation? How can you show a conversation between a parent and a child without touching upon these other auxiliary issues which are so important in modern parenting, right? Like Sir pointed out that it was just me having that conversation. That's also so real, even if both the partners are together. It sometimes just becomes like one parent's responsibility to have these conversations, or the fact that I had a bad day at work, and therefore how that plays out in life with the kids who have absolutely who have no connection to what's happening at work. So how do you navigate that? So I think at some subconscious level, a lot of these themes were playing in my mind, which then showed up on the edit table. And I thought that was a beautiful process. So that's also when I decided to edit my own films. Of course, when I edited this, it was just a budgetary thing where, why would I want to have an editor on board when I can do this myself, when I do this for other filmmakers and directors. But this process sort of helped me realize that no, just edit your own films, because there's also it's a window to the subconscious, and I don't mind sharing a glimpse of what's happening inside to the outside world. So that's to answer your question.
Thank you so much for the film. We came in late, but we loved whatever we saw. We are parents to a almost 2-year-old child, so this might be very premature, but we find ourselves in a situation where a curious child is asking questions and we're constantly struggling to come up with the most unbiased or the most honest or what we think will be the most honest answer. While there is no sense of shame attached to answering questions about whatever toilet training or the penis or breastfeeding or whatever, we often ask ourselves, how much is the child actually absorbing? Are we telling something too technical? Are we speaking a language that might be alien to them? Are they going to misinterpret what we say? And I mean, we wonder about that. So do you have any thoughts on what can help us as parents while having these conversations?
I have a whole session in mind, but I'll make it very short. The right time to answer a child's question is when it is asked. The vocabulary to be used is age appropriate in the sense that the child understands the words you are using. They need to be able to relate it with what they already know. So, for example, when so a question. Can you give me the question that your 2-year-old asked?
So he's now realizing that he misses breastfeeding.
Ah,
So every chance he gets, he goes around pointing at people's breasts.
okay.
Right. So of course it starts with the mother, but then he looks to the nanny. And a few days back, he even pointed to my nipples, and he was wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the strangest thing is he's realized that our female dog has nipples, but the male dog doesn't. So he also points down like this, and he points, and his term for the breast is gugu. So he bends down like this, and he says, "Appa, gugu, appa." So
Yeah.
I understand what is going on in his mind, but I cannot think of a response that can explain to him what it is. Or
So did he ask any question, or he's just observing and telling you that this
I
has
mean,
Gugu,
it's
this one
it's
doesn't?
largely it's a mix of two things. One is with the dog, we don't want her to feel unsafe and therefore snap back. So we try to tell him what is comfortable to her. But with humans, it's about the other person getting embarrassed either in public or whatever.
Yes.
So we tell him that, these are things you can talk about, these are things you can talk to us about.
Yeah, yes. So the clothing, touching, and talking rules, just like if your child was about to run across the road, you will stop the child, no? And say, no, dekho, ye vehicle aa rahi hai, this and that is happening. Same way, the child is old enough now, maybe going to a school and wears panties and, and doesn't go naked to the school. So you can talk to him that and tell him these are your private parts. Not only the genitals, but the mouth, because a lot of sexual abuse of children happens through the mouth. Mouth is also private. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. It is. So, can tell him about these 3 rules: how we keep our parts covered in front of others. And you'll find more details of this in our Surakshit app. You can reach our website and you can download that app and many things. But for him, say that these are there's a clothing rule. The touching rule is we don't touch ourselves in our private parts in front of others. But he's still very small, so he will go through the socio-sexual play. We need to make space for that. But we don't touch others in these parts, especially the older people, right? Because the socio-sexual play will happen. 3, 4, 5-year-olds will play with each other. They will touch each other's genitals. Don't interrupt. Don't do anything. They let it be, right? So you can go through our paper that we have produced through the Global Coalition to Promote Sexuality and Personal Safety Education. You can become a member of that coalition. We have a lot of members, and there is a free guide. It's there on the website. You can do that. Do tell him that if anybody, if you go and touch somebody in their private parts, they will feel uncomfortable, right? Because that's a rule. That's what we do. So staring at them, going and touching them, that becomes a little problematic. You're growing up, little bigger boy you are now. So we can observe these rules about personal safety. They are like our traffic rules. So that way you can go about, and the dog, and yes, daddy has nipples, but he doesn't have a breast. Mama has nipples and a breast, because one baby can grow in only one body. So nature has designed mama's body like that. So she had you, and you were too little, no teeth, nothing to eat. You could only drink milk. So that's why the breast was there on the mama's body, so she could feed the baby that is just born. Answer authentically using words like mama cell, mama baby cell, dada baby cell, baby house, baby birth passage for vagina. Just like you have a windpipe, you have a food pipe. In mama's body, there is a baby birth passage, and that's why mama's bodies are different from dada's bodies. Whatever you are saying should be authentic, should be true, but not the whole truth. It will come out as the child asks.
Any more questions, comment?
Hi. Yeah, I just want to know your opinion on whether the safety aspect of things that we teach will color the whole sex and sex topic in children's mind, where it might end up being a feedback loop of making it a shameful thing or a bad thing. Or...
No, not at all. It is not about, so sexuality education is not about safety. Sexuality education is to develop comfort and ease with your sexuality, with every part of your body. Respect every part of your body and all its functions. Respect others' bodies and all their functions. That is sexuality education. Personal safety education is, the aim of personal safety education is that I become a safe person. I don't break these rules, just like you're a safe driver on the road, right? And so the space becomes safer because I'm there. That is the ultimate. So it shouldn't come with the lens of safety. Sexuality education is much wider. It's about accepting and respecting what nature has given.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks. Sorry, follow-up question. Uh, you kind of mentioned a bunch of resources over the last hour. So, is there a place where all this is
Website.
Yeah,
documented?
that is the
and,
Enfold website.
Okay.
It is enfoldindia.org.
Okay.
And
I'll check it, yeah.
I don't know where, you just search the net, you will get it. Yeah. There's also Sanjana sitting there. Maybe she can write the email ID for the website address for you.
Okay, if there's no more question, I'll just maybe ask a final question and close for the day. What sort of world do you want to see? You mentioned violence, but what world do you want to see?
All this, it's about people respecting and accepting and celebrating all the different genders that we have, all the different sexes that we have, using our energies together to build a beautiful world, more joyous, more harmonious.
And again, a film is also an artwork. So what do you want your art to achieve or reach through the medium?
Was this part of the list that you shared with me?
Out of syllabus.
I want my work to help people reflect and introspect. So I think if through all my films, if I achieve a little bit of that, I'll die a happy death. Yeah.
Thank you. And
That you are making.
Right.
You're
right.
working on another film. I wanted to ask about that, which was related
Yeah,
to this.
that was
yeah. Can we
relevant,
take
yeah.
that outside the session? Yeah.
like the
Thank
movie
you.
says, and how both the ma'ams have said, conversation today is the best. Now. And there's no vocabulary to that because we are only today, the child is today. So today is the best date. So thank you. And a big round of applause to the two, Mitra and Rehan.